I swore to never love again until I saw a waitress caring for my daughter like her own. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart ached as I watched my little girl, perched on a bar stool, swinging her legs back and forth with innocent joy. Laughter bubbled from her lips, a sound that felt like sunlight cutting through the darkness of my world. But beneath that laughter was broken and shattered, trying to grasp at the remnants of a love I had lost. The cafe hummed with life. Plates clattered, the scent of fresh coffee filled the air, and soft music played in the background. Yet, I sat in the corner, clinging to my coffee cup like a lifeline. It was all too much. How could I face the world when my heart felt so heavy? She arrived like a gust of wind, the waitress. Tall, with curls dancing around her shoulders. Her apron was speckled with flour and grease, yet she moved like she owned the place. Her eyes deep and intense held a glimmer of something I couldn't place. As she approached my table, my chest tightened, a lump forming in my throat. "Can I get you anything?" Her voice was soft, yet commanding, cutting through my haze of despair. But those eyes, they sparkled with warmth when she looked at my daughter, who gazed back with wide-eyed wonder. And that's when it happened. I watched as she knelt beside my little girl, her smile brightening the dim corner where we sat. For a fleeting moment, it felt like magic. My heart raced. She stroked my daughter's hair, whispered something that made her giggle, a sound so pure, so untainted. It melted something inside me. I felt a flicker of desire, something I thought had long been extinguished. But why did this stranger care so deeply for my child? I squinted, looking for clues in her kindness. There was an unusual tenderness in her gestures, almost too protective, too loving. I strained to hear. Did she call my daughter sweetheart? Confusion wrapped around me like tentacles. Loud laughter erupted from a nearby table, instantly darkening my mood. Just moments ago, I was on the edge of hope, now pulled back to the despair of reality. The waitress smiled again at my daughter, and for a long second, it felt like she belonged to a motherly care that was foreign to me. I couldn't shake the unease tightening in my chest. Why did she make me feel this way? I fought against the sudden wave of jealousy. Wasn't I supposed to be the one who held my daughter's heart? Yet here was this stranger with her gentle fingers and comforting presence, stealing my child's laughter. As I sat frozen in place, the question burned in my mind: who was this woman, really? The waitress turned, catching my gaze. For a brief moment, time stood still. Her expression shifted, a flicker of recognition washed over her face, as if she knew something I didn't. My heart pounded, and the world around me faded into a blurry backdrop of colors and sounds. I couldn't breathe. What was I supposed to do with this feeling? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The next days unfolded in a haze, each moment blending into the next like watercolor paints bleeding on a canvas. I reluctantly returned to the cafe, half hoping to see that waitress again, half afraid of the feelings she stirred within me. My daughter, blissfully unaware of the turmoil swirling inside me, begged to go each morning just to see the nice lady. "Can we go back to the cafe, Daddy? I want to see the lady with the pretty curls." Her bright eyes sparkled with anticipation, and I felt my heart wrench for multiple reasons. How could I deny her the joy she found in something so simple? Yet every time her tiny voice echoed in my mind, it reminded me of my own struggles, of my frozen heart unwilling to thaw. When we finally walked back into the warm embrace of the cafe, the familiar smells washed over coffee, pastries, and an air filled with chatter and laughter. There she was, the waitress, her apron donned and her curls dancing. She was serving coffee and bantering with customers, her laughter blending seamlessly with the cafe's symphony. But today my breath caught. Accentuating the kindness she showed my daughter was a subtle sadness that lingered in her eyes, an undertone that spoke to my own pain. I was drawn to her again, as if sensing my presence. She turned, and our eyes met. I swear I felt the earth shift beneath my feet. There was a momentum brief, electric pause before her smile emerged, bright and genuine, and I could feel my resolve waver. My daughter tugged at my hand, pulling me closer as if she could sense the unspoken connection brewing between us. "Hey there?" The waitress greeted, her voice a soothing balm. "Isn't this a lovely day? What can I get for you both?" My daughter blurted out her favorite chocolate chip pancakes, and the waitress chuckled, leaning down to meet her eye level, drawing instinctive warmth from the child's spirit. For a fleeting moment, I felt like the outsider observing a scene I desperately wanted to be included in. A family, a small unit of happiness thriving amidst my heartache. Yes, I ordered a simple black coffee. I noticed her glancing in my direction. The warmth of her gaze felt like tendrils of sunlight reaching out to warm my frozen heart. "You're back. I'm really happy to see you," she said, and I was taken aback by her earnestness. "Yeah, it's a nice place," I replied, fumbling for words, my throat tight. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from the kitchen. A plate dropped, shattering on the tile floor, and a flurry of chaos followed. The waitress turned quickly to help, her demeanor shifting from lightness to determination. I glanced down at my daughter, her brows furrowed with concern as she watched the woman rush off. "Will she be okay?" my daughter whispered, and I felt the pang of worry intertwine with my heartstrings. I should have assured her, but I could only nod, my thoughts already whirling. Minutes passed, and during that time, I watched the waitress, her movements fluid as she returned to the floor, surging with resilience. She caught her breath with an effortless smile, as if the chaos had never pierced the bubble of kindness she created. But as the cafe returned to its rhythm, her laughter faded slightly, and I noticed her shoulders slumping ever so slightly. When she reached our table to check on us again, I couldn't stop myself. "You really care about this place, don't you?" The question felt forced but honest. Her eyes softened, and I glimpsed a deeper vulnerability. "It's more than a job to me. Each person here has a story." She paused, casting her gaze toward my daughter, who was now enraptured by a colorful drawing placed in front of her. "And sometimes they need a little extra love." The way she spoke about my daughter, with such tenderness, lit a spark deep within me, pushing aside the walls I had built around my heart. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, the chime of the cafe door distracted us. A tall, unfamiliar figure stepped inside a shadow from my past that I never wanted to encounter again. But my heart dropped as I recognized him. Evans, my ex-partner. The man who promised me everything but took it all away. The smile slipped from my face, and in an instant, the warmth of the cafe faded. I braced for the storm I knew was coming, realizing that the fragile moment I had begun to build was about to be shattered once again. Evans swept through the cafe like an ominous cloud, his presence demanding attention even in an atmosphere filled with laughter and the invigorating scent of fresh coffee. My heart raced, dread coiling tight as I registered the familiar sneer that creased his lips, a look that unsettled everything I'd begun to piece together that day. He spotted me almost immediately, and the mirth that had just flickered between me and the waitress dissipated like mist in sunlight. Well, if it isn't my old partner in crime," he called out, a mocking lilt twisting his words into daggers. My daughter, blissfully unaware of the emotional upheaval her father experienced, glanced up and waved innocent and carefree. "Daddy, who is that man?" she asked, tilting her head as she lost interest in the drawing. "Just someone I used to know," I whispered tightly, trying to shield her from the storm brewing inside me. But it was too late. Evans approached our table, his eyes gleaming with a mischievous kind of glee, as if he reveled in the chaos he was about to unleash. "Still playing house, I see," he said coolly, leaning casually against the table, creating a barrier I never wanted nor needed between us. The waitress approached, concern etched into her features, sensing the shift in the air. "Everything okay here?" she asked softly, her voice dropping an octave, yet there was an unmistakable strength behind her concerned expression. "It's fine," I managed, shooting a glance at Evans that I hoped conveyed my desire for peace, but he waved her off dismissively. "Just catching up, sweetheart," he smirked, the term making my skin crawl. "Nice to see you're still charming your way through life, isn't it?" "Leave us alone," I replied, unable to keep the tremor out of my voice. I felt the poise I had begun to build shatter like that plate, each piece echoing with unresolved emotions, both for him and the future I so desperately sought to protect. Evans didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned closer, as if drawing strength from my vulnerability. "How's the little one?" "They tell me it's hard to raise a kid on your own, especially when you can't let go of the past." The waitress shifted closer, her presence imbued with an unspoken support. "You can speak to me," she reminded me gently, and it ignited a flicker of hope within this moment of despair. There was a type of fortitude in offering kindness to someone so clearly struggling. "She seems happy," I offered, my voice steadied by her quiet strength. "Better than when I had you around." My heart raced, but Evans merely raised an eyebrow. Though a hint of displeasure darkened his features, the cafe buzzed around us, customers chatting, coffee brewing, laughter spilling across tables, yet we were ensnared in a bubble where time had paused. How long would this standoff last? I could feel tension radiating outward, coiling tighter, ready to snap, and it terrified me. Finally, Evans leaned back, crossing his arms. "Touchy, touchy. Just thought a little reminiscing would do you good. Isn't it too lonely living in our old neighborhood with a child?" His words dripped with condescension. "I build a life worth living." I shot back, my heart racing. Suddenly, my daughter tugged my sleeve, breaking the heavy spell that had bound us in confrontation. "Daddy, can we get pancakes now? Please?" That innocent plea carved through the tension like a knife, bringing a rush of affection and responsibility to the forefront. The waitress, crouched near my daughter's eye level, directed her supportive gaze towards me as though summoning the courage I struggled to find. "Yes, sweetheart, we can." I turned back to Evans, determined and firm. "I have to protect her from people like you. What you did, and how's that working out for you?" He smiled, but I caught the glimmer of anger beneath. "You think you can shield her forever? One day she'll know the truth. What kind of father keeps her from knowing her own lineage?" The hurtful reality of his words hung thick in the air, hauntingly close, and my daughter's innocent smile suddenly felt vulnerable amidst the rising storm. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice laced with concern, perplexity crossing her tiny features. "Nothing for you to worry about, sweetheart." I rushed to reassure her, heart pounding against my chest, but as I glanced back at Evans, that smile had turned into a sly grin. "I have to run," he called out, flashing a conspiratorial wink as he turned to leave. "But you might want to have a little talk with your daughter when you get home." The door chimed behind him, and the moment he left, I felt my body relax, but the air in the cafe felt thick with uncertainty. I turned to the waitress, who looked more concerned than before. "Is everything okay?" she asked softly, worry etched in her features as if she understood the magnitude of what had just happened. "No," I confessed, my heart still racing. "Nothing's okay. I am here if you need to talk." Her compassion offered me a thread of warmth, and I began to think that maybe, just maybe, I could let her in. But then, the heaviness in my heart dragged me back. My daughter's wide eyes, full of questions, pierced through my defenses like shards of glass. "Daddy, what did he mean?" As my mind raced for an answer, I felt the weight of my secrets barreling down on us. "Can we just eat pancakes first?" I hesitated, watching her confusion grow. Just as the waitress stepped away to place our order, my phone buzzed sharply on the table, its shrill tone cutting through the atmosphere. The name on the screen sent shockwaves through me. It was a message from my lawyer. My breath hitched, realization sending chills through my spine. I knew I had to respond. But what if it contained the very revelation I feared would unravel my daughter's innocent world? I glanced at my daughter, her happiness hanging in the balance, unaware of the truth that could shatter everything. For now, I kept my gaze averted, struggling to navigate this emotional labyrinth. Just as I prepared to face yet another storm, the choice weighed heavy inside me, and I knew that life and love would push me to a breaking point once again. The cafe's familiar sounds dissipated into a distant hum as I stared at my phone, suspended between fear and resolve. The message blinked back at Metas. Was it? Thoughts of Evans, his smirk, and the threat of unraveling my carefully constructed life brought me closer to a boiling point. What lay ahead had the potential to fracture everything, Daddy. The soft tug of my daughter's hand broke through my turmoil, her eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and concern. "Are we going to eat pancakes?" "I'm really hungry." I forced a smile, trying to mask the tempest that raged within. Yes, sweetheart, pancakes it is. I played with the notion of erasing the message, of keeping her world untouched, unaware of the storm that awaited us at home. But even as I thought it, I knew it was futile. The truth had a way of surfacing, and if Evans had his way, it wouldn't just be me that'd suffer. It would be her, my everything. Before I could linger on my thoughts, the waitress returned with our steaming plates, offering a warm smile that radiated kindness. Here we go. Some of the best pancakes in town for the best little artist, she said cheerfully, placing the plates in front of my daughter. Yay. Thanks. My daughter beamed, her face lighting up with pure delight as she grabbed a fork, excitement dazzling her eyes that I couldn't help but smile at her, a flicker of joy momentarily pushing out the encroaching darkness of my fears. But the weight of the impending conversation with my lawyer, the reality of what Evans had hinted at, clung tightly to my chest. As I watched her eagerly devour her food, questions of how to protect her, how to shield her from the shards of my past, overwhelmed me. Are you okay? The waitress leaned in slightly, her gaze penetrating but gentle. You look like you're carrying the weight of the world. That I swallowed hard, wanting to ignore the concern in her voice, but feeling her sincerity pull at the raw edge of my heart. It's just family stuff. Family can be complicated. She offered a knowing smile, as if she understood more than she let on. But you're doing a great job. I can see how much she loves you. I looked at my daughter, who was now industriously stacking pancakes on her plate with the kind of zeal that only a child could muster. There was nothing but purity in her joy, something I realized I hadn't felt in a long time. I want to make sure she has the best life possible. This world can be tough, but moments like these are worth fighting for, she replied, the sincerity in her voice wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. You will find your way. Just then, my phone buzzed insistently again, cutting our conversation short. I felt my heart race as I glanced down, the weight of my poor decision looming menacingly. And there it was, a single word in the text that flipped my world upside down. Emergency. With shaking hands, I read the full message, my breath hitching. It was an urgent reminder for a meeting, one that could determine the custody of my daughter. My mind raced as I envisioned a courtroom, the cold, austere benches, the barely circumstantial evidence that Evans could twist against me. I leaned back in my chair, struggling to regain my composure. Are you okay, Daddy? My daughter's innocent voice broke through my thoughts, and the sincerity in her tone was like a balm against the chaos swirling in my chest. Of course, sweetheart. Just a little tired. Let's finish up, all right? I focused on my daughter, allowing her laughter and the absurdity of pancakes stacking to push aside the dread hanging over me. If only for a moment I heard the soft jingle of the café door as new customers entered, a transient distraction. They looked lively, youthful eyes filled with dreams and possibilities, a reminder of how far I had drifted from that kind of carefree existence that I tried to reset my focus, to breathe through the anxiety that tightened in my throat. But even the laughter around us felt hollow, a mere reflection of the split reality that was about to unfold. Can I go play with that little girl over there, after we eat? My daughter asked, pointing towards a corner where a small group of children were gathered, their joyful shrieks beckoning her. Sure, just as long as you can still see me, I replied, relief filtering through for just a moment. If she could engage with other children, maybe I could steal a second to breathe and plan my next move. The waitress smiled at the two of us, taking a half step back, but keeping her presence close, as if ready to intervene if necessary. There's a wonderful playground down the street. I can keep an eye on her while you take that call. The sudden kindness caught me off guard, and as I considered her offer, the tension coiled tightly again. Thank you, but please. Her voice was firm yet soft. Sometimes, we all need a breather. I looked into her sincere eyes, and in that moment, I saw a glimmer of hope for the chaotic path I must tread. Maybe, just maybe, allowing someone to help wouldn't be so bad. All right, I exhaled, handing her my phone. Take this if I need it. She took the phone and led my daughter towards the other kids. I felt the very foundation of my reality shift a small flicker of light amidst the overwhelming tide. But my relief came with a damning realization. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was drawing ever closer to the edge of a precipice from which there would be no return. With a resolve strengthened by my daughter's innocent laughter fading behind me, I stood up and stepped outside, attempting to compose myself as the cool air brushed my skin. My trembling fingers hovered above the screen, longing to connect with my lawyer, yet dreading the weight of the consequences. Just before I pressed send, a shoulder collided with Minea, stranger brushing past. Yet I glanced up, all senses ignited. At that same moment, I heard a muffled cry come from the cafe, and in the cacophony of laughter and clinking dishes, my daughter's laughter now turned into something unrecognizable slashed through the air that I zoomed back inside, dread churning in my stomach as my heart raced. Everything around me, every fleeting moment, vanished in a fraught dawn of uncertainty. Whatever had shifted felt catastrophic, and just as I reached for her, I could only wonder if this was the moment everything unraveled. I pushed the cafe door open and rushed inside, the din of the establishment swallowing me whole as I scanned frantically for her. The warmth I had felt only moments before was replaced by a chilling apprehension as I called out her name, my voice tinged with panic. Ella! Ella! My breath quickened, and dread coiled within me like a serpent ready to strike. I spotted her at the back of the cafe, her small frame trembling next to the waitress. I was struck momentarily by the sight. Ella's wide eyes were brimming with tears, and the waitress knelt beside her, comforting her with gentle words that I want my daddy. Ella cried out, her voice echoing through the cafe with a heart-wrenching intensity. The air around me thickened, stifling the simple act of breathing as I rushed over. What happened? I bent down, urgency washing over me as I took her small hands in mine, feeling the tremors of fear rattle her delicate frame. Sweetheart, I'm right here. What's wrong? The waitress looked up at me, her expression a mixture of concern and compassion. She saw a little boy fall off the swing outside. It scared her. I was just trying to soothe her. I took a deep breath, grateful for the waitress's kindness, but overwhelmed by my daughter's fear. Ella, it's okay. The boy is fine, I promise. Can you take a deep breath for me? I modeled the action, inhaling slowly, hoping to instill some calm in her quaking body. Ella mimicked me, her breath shaky but gradually becoming steadier. Still, the sadness lingered in her eyes, and I felt as if I was swimming in a sea of helplessness. My mind spun, drowning in a chorus of what ifs. What if Evans retaliated? What if the very real threat to our family escalated in ways I hadn't prepared for? Let's go sit over there, I suggested softly, motioning toward a quiet corner. I want you to feel safe with me. I carefully led her to a table, where I wrapped my arms around her, hoping to banish the shadows lingering at the edges of her mind. As we settled, I felt a familiar ache knot in my throat, a reminder of all the fragile aspects of our lives that hung by a thread. I was just outside for a moment, but I should have been right here, I whispered, my heart heavy with guilt. I'm so sorry you were scared. Ella buried her face into my side, her small frame trembling as she let a few sobs escape. I stroked her hair gently, wishing I could simply erase her fears with comforting words, but I knew the world was fraught with uncertainties I couldn't control. The waitress approached again, her demeanor lightening the heavy air that surrounded us. Why don't I bring some hot chocolate and marshmallows for you two? Her eyes sparkled with warmth, and in the chaos, her kindness felt like a small lifeline. Ella's tear-streaked face perked up with a hint of anticipation. That sounds yummy. See, you've got a friend in her, I said softly, hoping it would spark some joy in her heart, while I fought the battle rising in me own between needing to protect her and facing the reality of Evans's looming threat. A few minutes later, the waitress returned with the steaming mugs, her smile unwavering. Heard you need a little sweetness to chase away the storm, she said, setting the mugs down gently. I couldn't help but witness a fleeting moment of happiness bloom on Ella's face as she accepted the hot chocolate. But as I watched her, I felt the rising tide of my emotions threaten to drown me again. Thank you, I murmured to the waitress, who gave me an understanding nod. There was a moment shared between us, an invisible thread weaving a connection of support. Just as we began to sip our drinks, my phone buzzed again, that dreaded weight returning to my chest. I glanced down, dreading the screen, then my heart lurched. A text from my lawyer. Urgent, we need to meet tonight. Evan's lawyer is pushing for a hearing tomorrow. Be prepared, things may escalate quickly. My breath hitched as I processed the words that felt like a detonation in my chest. I was falling, spiraling into a pit of despair. This wasn't just about my life anymore. It was about Ella's future hanging in the balance. Daddy? Ella's voice pulled me back from the chaos of my mind. The innocence in her gaze cut through my turmoil. Can we go to the park and play? I'm not scared anymore. A surge of emotion flooded through me, tearing at my heart as I glanced at the innocence of my daughter. I wanted to protect her dreams, but could I risk everything just to have a few shaded hours together? With the court looming, was I being selfish by wanting a fleeting moment of bliss? But as I looked into her hopeful eyes, I felt the embers of resolve ignite within me. Tonight, I whispered fiercely to myself as much as to her, the weight of my decision heavy yet freeing. Let's go. With that resolve in place, I took her tiny hand in mine, standing tall even as my thoughts soothed the storm inside, an unyielding promise emerging. I would fight for her, no matter the cost. As we exited the cafe, I caught the waitress's eye and gave a slight nod of gratitude, carrying the memory of her kindness as we stepped into the fading sunlight. But deep in my heart, even with the flicker of hope guiding me, there was an ominous cloud on the horizon, one I couldn't ignore. And just before I turned to lead Ella toward the park, I caught sight of a familiar car parked across the street. It was unmistakable. My heart dropped. Could he already be here, watching us? Every instinct in me screamed to run, but instead, I squeezed Ella's hand tighter, ready to protect her from whatever darkness loomed just beyond our bubble of innocence. The shadows stretched long and deep beneath the fading light, merging with my anxiety as we walked toward the park. Ella chattered about swings and slides, her laughter breaking through my tension like sunlight through clouds. Each note of glee sent jolts of warmth through me, a stark contrast to the gnawing dread nestled in my gut. As we approached the familiar playground, I dared a glance over my shoulder. The car was still there, same dark windows, same predatory silence. I felt my heart thump loudly in my throat, a constant reminder that danger was a breath away. I pushed it aside. I wouldn't let fear overshadow Ella's moment of joy. Let's race, she shouted, darting forward. She was a blur of energy bounding toward the swings, and I was left staring after her, captivated by her resilience. Okay, on three, I called, forcing a lightness into my voice. 1, 2, 3. We both took off, and the thrill of her little feet pounding against the ground filled me with fleeting exhilaration. It was utterly intoxicating to watch her joy spread like wildfire across her face. For those precious moments, I allowed myself to forget the chaos that swirled just beneath the surface of our lives. As she swung higher and higher, I stood back, my heart swelling with pride. Look at you. You're flying, I called, trying to match her enthusiasm. But the thrill was tempered by the weight of the world still pressing against my chest. After a few minutes, Ella's laughter rang out like a crystal bell, shattering the silence of my thoughts. Just as I turned to join her on the swings, a group of children approached her, their eyes wide with curiosity. I held my breath, ready to swoop in if necessary, but instead, I watched as Ella smiled and began to share her excitement. The other kids invited her to join a game of tag, and before I could process my hesitation, she was off, blending effortlessly into their play. I exhaled, the knot in my stomach loosening slightly, replaced by a tender, bittersweet joy. Perhaps for a moment, I could let her be a chilled-free spirit untouched by the shadows of adult troubles that I wandered closer to a bench, keeping my eyes trained on her. The playground was alive with laughter and shouts, the air thick with the scent of summer. Each time Ella threw her head back in laughter, my heart swelled with the memories of her younger years, before our lives became punctuated with worry. Mind if I join you? A voice interrupted my reverie. I glanced up, startled to see the waitress from the cafe standing beside me, her demeanor warm yet inquisitive. Sure, I replied, gesturing toward the empty space beside me. Ella seems to be having a great time, she said, her smile genuine, making my heart ache in retrospect. You must be her rock. More like trying to be, I admitted. She's been through more than most kids should ever have to endure. Her expression shifted, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. Sometimes I think they're braver than we give them credit for. They take each day as it comes, full of hope. I nodded, the weight of her words lingering between us. There was something comforting in her presence. That's what I want for her, to be unburdened. Then be that for her. Kids have an incredible ability to sense fear. They feed off it without even realizing, she said lightly. but there was a note of seriousness in her tone. Just then, Ella's laughter echoed through the air, making my heart race with the bittersweet mixture of joy and sorrow. "She's brilliant," I said, the words tumbling out unfiltered. "Deserves the world and more. You know, I can see that," the waitress agreed, her eyes twinkling as she watched Ella. "You are doing your best, and it shows that I hope so," I murmured, feeling the warmth of her compassion wrap around me like a fragile blanket. Just when I thought I could breathe a little easier, that familiar weight of worry settled back in, relentless in its pursuit. "You didn't come here to look after me, did you?" She chuckled softly. "Just making sure my favorite customer is doing all right." "Thank you for that." I smiled weakly, my defenses softening. As I shared with her a bit of my struggles. "The last couple of months have felt like an uphill battle. I get it," she replied. "Sometimes, we just need a little light in the dark. Just know if things get too heavy, you're not alone." Across the playground, laughter erupted again, and for a moment, I found solace in her words. But just as swiftly, a shadow flickered at the edge of my awareness. I turned to look again, and my breath hitched anew. In the distance, I saw a figure tall, dark-haired, and unmistakable. Evans. He stood half-hidden behind a tree, watching us. My instincts flared. The world around me spun, and I felt my heart lurch as realization set in. "Ella? Come here." Panic gripped my throat as I realized the danger she was in. I leaped to my feet, urgency fueling my movements. But before I could reach out, she paused, her laughter fading as she noticed my shift in energy. "What's wrong, Daddy?" she asked, confusion written across her tiny face that I felt rooted to the ground, my mind racing. "Stay with your friends for just a moment. I need to talk to you." But as I inched closer to Ella, I caught the flash of something. Evans slid deeper into the shadows, the familiarity of that sinister presence gathering just out of reach. I felt the warmth of the moment dissolve, replaced by the icy grip of fear. "Daddy?" Ella's voice quivered, concern knitting her brows together, and I knew I had to act quickly. With one hand, I reached for her, the other instinctively glancing toward where Evans had stood as my fingers brushed Ella's, the playground erupting in shouts and laughter. I realized the battle ahead was not merely about custody even in this innocent moment. The darkness was closing in fast. All I knew was that the fight was far from over, and this was just the beginning. The endless summer glow dimmed as evening approached, and an unsettling chill crept into the air. I pulled Ella into my embrace, hoping to shield her from the world lurking beyond the laughter. The thrill of her carefree moments with her new friends felt fragile, like soap bubbles weaving through a breeze. I had to find a way to keep that magic alive in her despite the lurking shadows. "Let's go play a game," I suggested, conjuring a smile as an idea sparked in my frantic mind. I needed to divert her thoughts, and mine, from the encroaching threat. "How about a treasure hunt?" Excited, she clapped her hands. "Yes. Can I pick what we look for?" "Of course. Whatever you want, my explorer," I said, tension staggering in my chest for a moment. I rummaged through my mind, searching frantically for potential treasure items. "Let's find stickers," Ella declared, her eyes gleaming with possibility. It was such a simple request, but it was that simplicity that reminded me of her innocencia. Soft blanket over my gnawing anxiety. We began our hunt, wandering the playground to search for hidden treasures. I meticulously observed every child around us, scanning for any indication of danger, while Ella dashed from one corner to the next, declaring every little piece of litter a treasure. Despite my worry, there was a beauty in how she embraced the world so fully, a vivid splash of color amidst my gray. As we sorted through rocks and bits of grass, a familiar voice broke through the laughter and chaos. "Ella, look what I found." A little girl emerged, holding an iridescent butterfly sticker. "To me, that's a hidden treasure." Ella grinned, her excitement shining bright, and in that moment, I saw a glimmer of hope. Maybe childhood magic could endure beyond the shadows that threatened to envelop us, that I couldn't help but share in her joy. "That's amazing. Can I see?" I extended my hand, imagining her bursting smile. As she handed it to me, I felt a rush of love mixed with despair. The future was uncertain, and every small victory felt tenuous. "Hey, race a treasure for you, Daddy," she chirped, sitting cross-legged with her prize. She presented me with a simple drawing from her pocket, a crayon-rendered sun with stick figures dancing beneath it. I did it for you. So you wouldn't feel sad that I felt a lump in my throat, choking on the bittersweet sweetness of her gesture. Oh, Ella, I murmured, fighting against the tide of emotions welling within me. This is a treasure I will keep forever. Before Ella could respond, a commotion erupted nearby. Parents were gathering in a cluster, their voices tinged with urgency. My instincts kicked in. Something wasn't right. Heart pounding, I glanced to where Evans had stood moments ago, only to find that he had vanished completely. Anxiety twisted in my gut. I shifted into protective mode, scanning the environment feverishly. Stay close. Ella, I warned, scooping her up into my arms as I moved toward the crowd. I had to keep her safe. Let's see what's going on. As we approached, I could hear the worried murmurs. Someone's child was missing. Panic settled heavily in the air, creating a thick fog of dread that threatened to suffocate joy. I squeezed Ella tighter, unable to comprehend her innocence amidst this newfound chaos. Oh, you see, anyone you know? I asked, forcing my voice to remain calm. And oh, she said, her forehead creasing. But Daddy, I'm okay, right? Yes, sweetheart. You're right here with me, I said, convincing myself as much as her. Just remember to stay close, okay? Her little arms wrapped tightly around my neck, and my heart ached trying to reconcile the love I felt for her with the fear surging through my veins. The sense of community quickly shifted to one of resentment, as parents began whispering about how things like this should never happen at such a safe place. I clenched my jaw, trying to drown out their despair, and then, just like that, I spotted a flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye, dark hair slipping into a crowd. Evans. I felt the world freeze around me as pieces snapped into place. My breath quickened, urgency descending in. Waves. I need you to hold on tight. Ella, I whispered, my body coiled with a resolve I hadn't known existed within me. My heart raced, amplifying every instinct to protect her. Just stay with me. That we slipped through the thrumming crowd as I chased after the figure. There was something malevolent in the way he blended into the chaos, as if weaving through fear itself. Daddy, where are we going? Ella's voice trembled. Just keep talking to me, sweetheart, I replied, forcing a grin to reassure her while the pit in my stomach deepened. I found a secret hiding spot. Her voice rang out, a desperate attempt to distract herself, and I marveled at her bravery. It was behind the swings, and I was going to tell you about it next time. But that next time felt threatened as Evans seemed to float closer, each step tainted with the tension that engulfed us. I held her securely, lungs tight with the realization that our peaceful day had morphed into a tether to something far more dangerous. Then she spoke, an innocent declaration amidst the whirlwind of dread pounding in my ears. Daddy, I love it when we have adventures. Can we have more after this one? At that moment, I hesitated, caught in a predicament of the heart. Would there be more adventures for us, or would I fail to keep her safe? Suddenly, a flood of voices surrounded me, blending into a piercing cacophony as I locked eyes with the shadow of Evans. The blurry outlines of his presence blotted out all else, and my body became a vessel for the surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins in one decisive moment, he caught my gaze, and the world around us felt like it had fallen away. But just as I was about to confront this lingering fear, I felt Ella shift nervously in my arms. Daddy, are we going home? I turned to answer, but the sight that met my eyes made my heart thump in a wild rhythm. Evans had slipped into the crowd, and a sudden crash broke into the evening air, bringing everything and everyone to a standstill. A deep sense of foreboding crept through me as I stood paralyzed with Ella close. A sudden realization dawned: this wasn't over. The shadows had only just begun to unravel their grip, and our fate lay twisted in uncertainty, suspended in a moment just beyond our reach. The evening moved with a lazy intensity, and I held Ella's little frame tightly against me, as though she were a buoy in a stormy sea. The clash of laughter and sudden chaos created a dissonance that dug deeper into the pit of my stomach, something unmistakably ominous that throbbed against the heartbeat of the kids around us, unaware of the fear wrapping around their guardians like ivy. I was terrified, both for her and for what lingered just beyond the fraying edges of our stolen moments. Without letting anyone see the tension coiling in my chest, I began to move away from the crowd. My instincts urged me to protect Ella, away from the chaos spiraling tighter around us. I glanced back one last time, seeking out a familiar face, searching for an ally in this gathering dread. Look, there's the swings. Ella chimed, her voice bright, a desperate candle flickering against the dark. She pointed towards the playground structure, a vivid oasis in the encroaching night. Not right now, sweet pea. Let's keep moving, I urged softly, squeezing her against me. Her world should be filled with laughter and butterflies, not the seeping anxiety that was slowly poisoning my thoughts. That we ducked into an alley behind the playground, where the laughter dulled into whispers. Just ahead, the light from a nearby street lamp fogged the air with a golden hue that felt almost ethereal. Ella wriggled from my arms momentarily, her curiosity leading her toward shadows that flickered softly. I couldn't help but envision dark figures dancing just beyond her reach. "Daddy, over here," she squealed, as if summoned by something only she could see. I followed, my heart racing but still tethered to her laughter, a bright, vivid thread amidst the gray. Suddenly, I seemed to stumble upon a warmth, a surprising gesture of kindness that began to thaw my icy pessimism. There stood a waitress from the nearby diner, her apron stained, but her smile unyielding. She hadn't seen us before, yet there was a sincerity in her gaze, as if she understood the unspoken storm raging within me. "Hello there, little adventurer. What's your name?" She knelt down, her eyes sparkling. "Ella," my daughter replied shyly, immediately drawn to her genuine warmth like a moth to a flame. "Ella, what a lovely name. I bet you're the bravest explorer this side of the park," the waitress praised, and for a moment, I felt the weight of the day lift as small beams of light began to pierce the darkness. "Do you want a sticker, Ella? I have some treasures at the diner," she offered with a grin that seemed to draw laughter from a well unbothered by shadows. "Yes, please," Ella beamed, her worries momentarily forgotten. The waitress rifled through her pocket. I couldn't shake the feeling of gratitude. Despite the chaos, here stood a stranger willing to extend kindness to my daughter. Yet, my heart still thudded with a drumbeat of what could happen next. "Here you go, my brave explorer," the waitress beamed, handing over a shiny star sticker. "This will remind you to keep being your amazing self." Ella squealed in delight, turning the sticker over and over in her hands, as if it were an artifact from a distant land. A flicker of hope ignited. Her innocence danced just above the surface of my gloom. I mumbled a thank you to the waitress, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this brief moment of connection was just a thread holding back a deluge. "Daddy, can we go to the diner?" Ella's excitement was palpable. "I want to show you my sticker. A little later, sweetheart. Let's just stay close for now." My voice trailed off, a wisp of worry creeping in, anxious to keep her from the mess surrounding us. Before I could usher her further from the turmoil, darkness swept back as parents began to emerge from the crowd, their faces pale and frantic, shadows of hopelessness drifting across their eyes. "I can't imagine how I'd feel if something happened to her. We can't let that happen," one mother cried out, clutching her partner's arm. The pain etched in her voice was a reminder of my own turmoil, and I fought the rising tide of dread within me. Keenly aware of Ella's small hand slipping into mine, I gripped it tighter as we navigated away from the crowd. "Stay close, baby," I whispered. Each step felt heavy as the draw of uncertainty loomed larger with every moment. And just as I turned to gesture further down the alley, the distant wail of sirens sliced through the air, gnawing at my composure. "Daddy, are we in trouble?" Ella asked, her voice small, threaded with confusion that made my heart ache. No, sweetheart. We're just making sure you're safe," I said, though I was saying it more for my sake than hers. In that split second, my eyes caught something flickering in the distancia, a shadow looming precariously close, reminiscent of a dark nightmare lurking just beyond my vision. "What is that?" Ella pointed, and I followed her gaze. Could it be? Was Evans watching us? Or was it merely my mind conjuring threats in the night? This uncertainty pressed against my ribs, choking me with its weight. "Stay close." My voice came out stronger, but inside a small voice warred against my protective instincts. What if I couldn't keep her safe? Just then, peace seemed to slip through my fingers, like sand scattering in the wind, as the realization clenched tightly around my heart. The day hadn't delivered us from chaos, it only masked the storms brewing ahead. In that moment, I vowed to shield Ella with everything I had, even if it meant confronting the very shadows lurking in the corner of my eye. The sirens continued to wail, echoing through the alley, heralding a night that would leave scars deeper than we could imagine. Little did I know, the next twist of fate was already unfolding, creeping ever closer to shattering the fragile hope we'd clung to. The echo of sirens persisted, a mournful cry that bled into the fabric of the night. I could feel Ella's palm trembling against mine, her gaze flitted uneasily toward the darkness, where shadows were drawn longer and deeper, and I took a breath to steady myself. "Let's find somewhere safe," I said, my voice firm yet trembling, as my instincts pulled us down the alley, further from the laughter that rang hollow behind us. Each step forward felt like I was trudging through a treacle, the weight of worry pulling me back toward danger, but Ella had a different idea. "Look, Daddy, the stars." She pointed toward the sky, her face illuminated by a flicker of hope that almost disarmed me. "They're so pretty." "Yeah, they are," I replied weakly, grateful for the distraction, even as my eyes scanned the periphery for threats lurking just outside our sight. I knelt down beside her, wanting to bottle that spark of joy, knowing full well it might flicker out at any moment. "You want to make a wish?" Her eyes lit up, and for a moment, the shadows receded just enough for me to see the glimmer of childhood magic. "I wish for ice cream," she declared, raising her tiny hands toward the heavens, oblivious to the uncertainties that clawed at me. "That I think that can be arranged," I murmured, my heart aching. I wished I could give her the world without the ever-present specter of fear gnawing at my soul. Ice cream wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel safe, loved, and untouched by the shadows that loomed over us. We resumed our journey, and as we turned a corner, an unexpected sight caught my eye. A small group gathered near a street corner, adults leaning in with concern, surveying the quiet chaos that unraveled. A flicker of courage sparked within me, needed to know what was happening. "Stay close," I instructed once more, as we approached the group. The unease swirling around us was palpable, a thick fog of uncertainty that suffocated the air. Someone was whispering urgent words, and as I edged closer, I caught the phrase that settled like ice in my gut. "Another child missing from the park tonight," a woman said, her voice trembling in the dim light. My heart plummeted, a lead weight gathering like stones within my chest. It felt as though the ground beneath us trembled. "Daddy, what does missing mean?" Ella asked innocently, and I felt bile rise in the back of my throat. "Just some kids are playing hide and seek, baby," I lied, patting her head even as guilt wrapped around me like barbed wire. The whispers continued, and I could see eyes darting back and forth, darkened by worry. A sense of hopelessness gripped my heart. I wanted to scream, to clutch Ella close and wrap her in layers of protection. But how? How could I shield her from brutality when the world outside our bubble was so harsh? Then a hand touched my shoulder lightly, a gentle, reassuring squeeze. I turned to find the waitress from the diner, her eyes soft but troubled. "I heard what happened," she said quietly, and I felt a flicker of connection between us, the warmth of her presence breaking through my fortress of worry. "Hey," I managed, forcing a smile that I hoped masked the storm raging inside me. "Thank you for what you said to Ella. It meant a lot." Her eyes twinkled with understanding, but they were clouded with the weight of knowing that things weren't okay, that the world turned even darker than we could see. "I'm truly sorry. This isn't the kind of night we wanted." "You're doing a great job with her, though," she offered, glancing down at Ella, whose innocence seemed to shine brighter in the looming shadows. "Thanks." I wanted to trust her words, but each compliment felt like an anchor weighing me down. Ella looked up at us, sensing our silence. "Can we meet new friends, Daddy?" It twisted my heart to think friends might now be shadows in the night. "Of course, sweetheart," I nodded, forcing myself to be the father she needed, rather than the one consumed by dread. As we parted from the group, I caught another fleeting glance at the waitress. She was still watching, her concern palpable. With a wave, I acknowledged her with a nod that said I appreciated her more than she knew. Sometimes, small kindnesses came as lifebuoys in a choppy as we walked further down the street. The wails of sirens still clawed at the edges of my consciousness, a siren's call that echoed into the night. I fought back tears, threatening to spill at the seams, determined to keep Ella oblivious to the cold grasp of reality that was tightening around us. "Daddy, I'm getting cold." Ella's soft voice broke through my fog. "Can we go home?" "Yes. Soon," I promised, my voice thick with emotion. The warmth inside me battled against the chill outside, but I knew her home, our home, felt like a distant memory, an unreachable star in a sky slowly consumed by impending darkness. And from behind us, the shadows deepened. The feeling of being watched resurfaced, a prickling sensation at the back of my neck, making my skin crawl. I turned abruptly, straining to see through the gloom. "Close your eyes, Ella," I heard myself say, my voice trembling as I blinked against the darkness. And in that moment, as I verified the vicinity, I saw a silhouette, a dark figure lurking just beyond. I felt my heart stop abruptly. "Daddy, what is it?" Ella's innocent question pierced through the tension like a gentle arrow. The figure moved closer, revealing itself in the dim light of a flickering street lamp that I recognized, that face, a flash of recognition mixed with terror unfurling in my heart. "It can't be. Stay behind me," I commanded Ella instinctively, pushing her back as dread knotted my stomach. That familiar face seemed to smile, and yet the unsettling truth lingered like the scent of smoke. Merging with the chilling night, our world began to tilt, crashing down around me as layers that I thought I understood began to peel away, exposing a new layer of fear I hadn't anticipated. This would be a night of revelations, and I feared it was merely the beginning. I saw him, the figure lurking with a confidence that sent ice through my veins. Evans, the dark silhouette of my past, had materialized right in front of us, and as much as my instincts screamed to run, I felt rooted to the spot. "Daddy?" Ella's voice was a whisper, a tremor echoing in the night air. I turned to face her, forced myself to take a deep, stabilizing breath. "Everything's all right, sweetheart. Just stay close," I soothed, though my heart thudded loudly in my chest. Evans stepped closer, the street lamp casting harsh shadows across his features. His smile was disarming, twisted in a way that reminded me of all the laughter we once shared. "Well, isn't this a cozy scene?" His words dripped with sarcasm, and I tightened my grip on Ella, ready to shield her from the suffocating reality that threatened to suffocate us. "What do you want, Evans?" I said defiantly, facing the storm head-on. I couldn't afford to show weakness. Not with my daughter here. He cocked his head slightly, the glimmer in his eye an unsettling fusion of amusement and malice. "Want? Oh, come now. Just checking in on my little girl," he said, his voice oozing false positivity. My stomach churned at the implication because, at that moment, I understood what had been unspoken between us all along would stop at nothing to claw back into Ella's life. "No," I stated firmly, the weight of the word lingering between us. "She's not yours. You lost that right." My words were like flames flaring against an encroaching darkness, but I felt the heat recoiling against an ice-cold reality that threatened to drown it out. That a crooked smile flickered on his face, and he stepped a little closer. "You're right. I did lose her to you, didn't I? But it seems you're losing a lot more than just her." "What do you mean by that?" I pressed, feeling the adrenaline seep into every fiber of my being. "Elaborate?" "Oh, how quaint," he chuckled, but I caught the undertone of something darker. "I just think there might be some surprises waiting for you tonight." Every word dripped with mockery, and I felt anxiety twisting into fear as it sunk deeper into my bones. I could hear the sirens grow closer, their wails bathed in escalating urgency, but they felt distant from this face-to-face confrontation. "Surprises?" I echoed, feeling the heat of desperation rising within me. "What are you talking about?" But as I searched his eyes for an answer, I felt Ella pull at my hand, her small fingers wrapping around mine. "Daddy, I'm scared." Her voice cracked with uncertainty, and the warmth of her trust wrapped around my heart, tightening into a knot of guilt and determination. "Ella, I need you to listen to me," I said quickly, kneeling down to meet her gaze. "I want you to keep your eyes on me. I won't let anything happen to you. I promise." Her tear-filled eyes met mine, and in that moment, I knew what I had to do. Turning back to Evans, I took a step forward, my pulse racing. "You need to leave us alone. You fail to realize that every threat you pose only strengthens my resolve to protect her." He laughed, a hollow sound that echoed across the empty street. "Protecting her? From what? Cut your losses." You can't keep this charade up forever. The venom in his words struck me harder than I expected. Ella deserves better than this. I gestured to the warmth of the street shining brightly above us, a stark contrast to the icy grip of his presence. Then let's see how better plays out, he sneered, his smile fading, replaced by a look that chilled me to my core. I felt darkness swirl around us, as if the shadows had come alive, waiting for their moment to strike. Mr. Evans. The shout came from behind, cutting through the tension like a knife. I turned to see several police officers heading toward us, their demeanor authoritative and watchful. What's this, a neighborhood watch party? Evans said, feigning nonchalance, but the nerves in his posture were a flashing red light. Step away from the child, one of the officers commanded, and I felt the tension shift as they closed in like guardians from another realm. In that moment, I realized the shadow I thought was coming for us instead held a protective light. Drawing Ella closer, I took a step back toward the officers. He's not supposed to be near her, I shouted, feeling my voice crack under the weight of adrenaline. Sir, step back, the officer repeated, more forcefully this time, and I watched as Evance's bravado began to unravel, his confidence shifting into a furtive glance over his shoulder. Someone must have tipped you off, he spat, licking his lips in annoyance, his bravado cracking. The officers didn't flinch. Their presence felt monumental, the weight of justice pushing back against the shadows. I glanced down at Ella, who was watching with wide eyes, her fear slowly morphing into a glimmer of hope. I'm here, sweet pea, I murmured, my heart swelling with love for her. You don't have to worry anymore, an officer said gently, kneeling down to her level, and suddenly, the warmth of safety flooded over me, casting aside the shadows of doubt. As the officers turned to Evans, their demeanor changed. We've received numerous complaints. One explained matter-of-factly. You're under investigation for harassment and threatening behavior. Anything you say can and will be used against you. My heart surged as I realized this was the turning point. The dark cloud that had loomed above us was finally beginning to break, letting in a sliver of light. Evance's face twisted into a mask of rage and disbelief. You won't get away with this, he spat, and at that moment, I finally glimpsed the truth of the matter was unraveling just as I was beginning to reclaim my life. The officers guided him away, and as they pulled him out of my sight, a wave of relief washed over me. I felt Ella's tiny hand grip mine tighter. Is it over, Daddy? Her voice was small, but it was like music to my ears. Not yet, sweetheart, but we're safe now, I promised, feeling the warmth of her trust wrap around my heart, reinvigorating my spirit. But I'm still hungry. Can we go home and have ice cream? She chimed, her innocence breaking through the remnants of fear like a warm breeze chasing away winter. Yes, absolutely. Ice cream it is, I said, and as I turned to walk away, I felt something tugging at my heart, a tightness that echoed with gratitude for this moment. The connection forged between us in the face of darkness. The waitress stood a few paces away, her eyes filled with kindness, a powerful reminder of the glimmers of hope that persisted amid turmoil. Without thinking, I approached her. Thank you, I said, my voice earnest, for being there when I couldn't see. She smiled softly, understanding seeping through like sunlight. You're doing an incredible job. Sometimes, the shadows make the light even brighter. Ella tugged at my hand. Can we go? I can't wait any longer. Just a moment longer. I turned back to the waitress. Would you like to join us for ice cream? It was spontaneous and a little reckless, but I felt a spark of hope for kindness, for new beginnings, for forging connections beyond the chaos. Her eyes widened in surprise, but then a shadow of warmth flickered across her features as she nodded. I'd love to. And as we walked, hand in hand, toward the promise of sweetness that awaited us, I felt the pieces of my heart slowly coming together again, every struggle transformed into a stepping stone, every shadow softened by the light. I wish I could be brave like you, Daddy, Ella said, her voice a mixture of admiration and innocence. I knelt beside her, drawing her tiny face close. You already are, Ella. You always have been. And as long as we're together, we'll find a way to keep shining. In that moment, I realized that the shadows could chase us, but they would never consume us. Together, we were light, and together we would rise, because even amidst the raw struggle, we had each other and that was enough. As we stepped into the ice cream parlor, the sweet scent curling around us like a warm embrace. I felt powerful, resolutely a protector, father, and guardian. And with every scoop of happiness I shared with my daughter and newfound friend, I finally felt the weight of yesterday lift, even if only for today. Hey, race to better days and brighter tomorrows, I whispered just as Ellis' laughter floated up into the air, brightening even the darkest corners of my soul. It was in that moment I understood. Our future, no matter how uncertain, shimmered like a star guiding us home.